Alright, let's see if we can work on this quilt here, which is diamond quilt. So we're going to see what we can do with it. I don't know. I'm going to have to probably find some more backing, because this one is a pretty big quilt. And I don't know. It's a pretty big quilt, so I don't know. I'm going to have to find something, because this right here is not going to be enough to do it. But this is diamond quilt, and this is the one we're going to be working on. I'm hoping there's enough here to make it. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn this one halfway. This right here is a big quilt. This one's a big one. Alright. So, what I'm going to do is, I know it's going to have to be halfway. So, I'm going to take it all the way off of this bulk, because it'll probably take every bit of it. I already done made a clothes out of it. And now we're going to see what we can do. Ooh. Oh, Mama Cat's on this seat. Yeah, Mama Cat, you probably ought to move. Maybe. Alright. Let's fold this the other way and see what happens. Oh. I'll probably have to go find more or something.
Shop for both China and Russia, and Iran is now its member. In November, the top Russian security officials visited Iran. Who were these officials? For one, Russia's national security chief and Russia's Security Council Secretary Nikolai Patrushev, a man who is extremely close to none other than the Russian President Vladimir Putin himself. So why would Russia...
Well, we still don't have enough. So, I'm not going to cut none of this off to make it work. However, what I'm going to do is cut this in half, cut this one in half, and then take this one and put it at the bottom so that it will be long enough, because I don't know if I have any more that's this color. or not. But that's what my intentions are. Alright, let's go sew this. I'm going to go ahead and just go in there and sew this down so that we'll have this part done. Alright, this quilt's been on the table for a while now. I'm not for sure what to do with the backing of it. So, what we're going to do is get this out of the floor. And I want to make sure how I got this folded. Should have checked it out before. Alright, I want to take and fold it in half so we can get some batting on here. Get some batting for it. Okay, so there it is in half. Alright, now we're going to take the batting and we'll try to roll it up or roll it out to get enough to do that quilt.
So this kind of, there, you know, these videos are up for anybody to see, but this kind of shows this path that's being taken. And interestingly, well, I mean, it's no surprise to me by now, of course, after this many years, but the Bible tells us exactly what we're witnessing at this moment. And David, you did a broadcast, and I just talked about that, called The Willful King in the book of Daniel. And this broadcast was in 2019 of June 23rd. So we're talking 5 years ago that you did this video. Almost 5 years ago, almost pretty close to 5 years.
Yeah. There we go. What we can do about cutting it down now. I don't know what to do with the back except for try to put it together and then add to it. So that's what I'm going to try to do. And see if that right there won't work. Come on. It's a big quilt, and I don't know why in the world I made a big quilt. Alright. So, now, I think what I'm going to try to do from here is start with the back and pull my table out and make sure I can get around it, all the way around it.
And so you've been talking about this for a while, and to see it, a lot of people actually gave you flack over some of the stuff you said about it, because people wanted to propagate Iran, which is weird to me because I know Iran has gone through a lot of really horrifying things for the citizens there, but the things that you said are coming true, and because it's in the Bible. So tell us a little, actually tell us a lot about Iran and Bible prophecy. This is something that I want to hand over to you for a minute so that we can get a full scope of this, because there's a lot of people here tonight specifically to hear about this, and also the red heifer. But this is very important that people understand what we might be seeing, because when you can see what's happening, I think that it dampens the fear at least a little bit, to be able to know what's coming. At least for me, it does. I like to see what's coming. If I can flip the light switch on down a creepy hallway, I prefer that, rather than not. So
yeah, and it definitely dates me, but I believe I've been teaching this for almost 30 years, and the longer I live, the more real and the more confirmation that comes. And in Daniel 11 is where we read of the willful king, and it talks about the king of the south and the king of the north. And this insightful young lady talked about the China, Russia, and the Iran alliance. And basically, we see here the uniting of the kingdom of Tartaria. We see Tartaria ran from the area there of the Ukraine all the way to the sea there into Chinese Tartaria. And we're seeing not long ago, Vladimir Putin went to Xi Jinping and said, I embrace your vision for the New World Order. And Putin basically kissed the ring of Xi Jinping and inaugurated him as the king of the South.
Yeah.
And in geopolitics, you can look up, they talk about the global north, which is basically your G7 nations, and the global south, which is basically your third world countries. And this is Daniel 11. We have the king of the north, which is your G7 countries, Britain, the United States. Then you have the global south. And no doubt Xi Jinping is the king of the south. And we see this prophetically coming into this end-time conflict. And for many, many, many years, I have been saying that the king of the south is Iran.
All right, let's see if we can't get this right here done. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go like I did the other one and go down the seams. But this is too big. We need to do something with it. So I'm going to go is this 2.5? Yeah, it's 2.5 in here. So I want to go 2.5 right here. And I'm going to take this Crafty Core chalk rider, and I am going to, am I going to be able to see it? Yeah. Alright, now we're going to get this one.
And it really seems to be the case. Now, we had, when we did our midnight ride on Tartaria, right on the eve of the announcement of this chim of the Chinese and the Iranian alliance, we had 3 confirming witnesses. We had Daniel 11, and we also had the book of Enoch. In the book of Enoch, in chapter 56, and the 5th verse, and it says, in those days the angels shall return and hurl themselves to the east upon the Parthians and Medes. Now the Parthians, this is in Iran. They're the Iranians today. They shall stir up the kings so that a spirit of unrest shall come upon them, and they shall rouse from their thrones, that they may break forth lions from their lairs, and as hungry wolves among their flock, and they shall go.
Remember me telling you I stuck a pin in the... I didn't know you was going to need no pin, so I didn't.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's why I just laid it right on here.
My bad.
I know.
Mama Cat, why you wait for it?
Because Mama Cat can get in the way. Did you not hear her say, I am boss here? I mean, that goes without saying. I think I'm going to put this one.
In chapter 56 and the 5th verse, and it says, in those days the angels shall return and hurl themselves to the east upon the Parthians and Medes. Now the Parthians, this is in Iran. They're the Iranians today. They shall stir up the kings so that a spirit of unrest shall come upon them, and they shall rouse from their thrones, that they may break forth lions from their lairs, and as hungry wolves among their flock, and they shall go up and tread underfoot the land of his elect ones. Specifically prophesying that these Parthians, Iran, is going to come into Israel in the last days.
You gonna sew something on them?
What do you mean sew something on it?
What do you put the pins on? Oh, you gonna sew it together?
Yeah, it's sandwiched together.
Yeah. Okay, I got you.
You want to know something? One of the slogans that they're saying in Iran is something about biting the tail of the lion, and which is crazy. And as we know as well, Iran also is where we get the word Aryan, right? Or Aryan comes from Iran comes from Aryan, and Aryan is like Aries, the lion. Aries, Aryan has the lion symbolism, which we've talked about before too, because at one time King Og of Bashan was the ruler of the Aryan kingdoms. Pretty amazing.
Yeah. And we've got another confirming witness in 2nd Esdras 15. And if any, and I tell you what, last week's Midnight Ride was very good, even if me and John did do it. It was a real good. We give you a lot of insight there into these Jewish apocalyptic books, which the Midnight Ride tonight shows how important they are. Let's have another confirming witness from 2nd Esdras. And let's look at the 15th chapter, and we'll read in verse 29, when the nations of the dragons of Arabia, well, I wonder who the dragon might be, and this is specifically stated to be coming from the east. Pretty definitive. It says, they shall come out with many chariots, and the multitude of them shall be carried as the wind upon the earth, that all they which hear them may fear and tremble. Also, the Carmanians, raging in wrath, shall go forth as the wild boars of the wood, and with great power shall they come and join in battle with them. So here we see the Carmanians joining with the dragons of the east, coming from the east, and they shall lay waste a portion of the land of the Assyrians. Now, in the height of the Assyrian Empire, it took over the whole area of the Levant there. Now, who are these Carmanians? I'll read the footnote here in the Oxford Annotated Bible. It says, the Carmonians from Carmania, Kerman, the southern province of the Parthian Empire. Chaching, the Carmanians in the 2nd Esdras, and the Parthians in the book of 2nd Esdras, they're the same people. It's Iran. Well, let's have another confirming witness, and this is one that I've never talked about before. I just discovered this week. I have 2 new confirmations to this that we didn't have in 2019 or in the last time we did our Tartaria broadcast. But in the Dead Sea Scrolls, in the War Scroll, it talks about the war between the sons of light and the sons of darkness. Now, in the War Scrolls from the caves of Qumran, it says that the leaders of the sons of darkness will be an entity they call the King of Kittim, another name for Assyria, and this land of the Assyrian Empire at its height, which took in the entire Levant. I'll read just a little bit here. This is on page 189 of the Giza Vermes edition. And in the book I referenced quite a bit last week, The Method and Message of Jewish Apocalyptic, it put me onto this because it said that the War Scrolls was a commentary on Daniel 11. I thought, oh boy, here we go. Here we go.
Interesting.
It says, the prince of the congregation, which was written about in the book of Ezekiel the prophet, I will strike your bow from your left hand and will make your arrows drop from your right. On the mountains of Israel you shall fall. The king of the Kittim, the prince of the congregation, will pursue them as far as the great sea. And it talks right in Daniel 11. We'll read it, how that it talks here in 2nd Esdras and Enoch, and now in this source in Daniel 11, how this willful king is going to go right up to the sea. It's a quadruple confirmation here.
Alrighty, I'm out of pins. I've got enough here and enough batting on the back here, so I can work on this end. But down here at this end, I don't have enough batting down here, so I'm gonna have to sew something to it before I could do this, and it would be the middle part too. So I could do all of this down here, But none of this until I get more batting, or not batting, but backing on this side. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and finish pinning this down, and then we'll get started on it. Alrighty, I've had nothing but trouble out of my stuff. So, what can I say? I took all them pins off down there, and I'm putting them down here. And I'm going to put them over here. But, now, when I get halfway, I'm just going to sew down this one. And I'm not going to sew up in there until I get the other piece on. Because I don't want to mess that up. But I can go ahead and sew all this down on this side. Alrighty, I got to let my battery charge. And then we'll be back and we'll work with these right here and see what we can do with these.
David, I got a question. What does it say about the arrows in there? Say that again.
Okay. And it says here, and here it begins quoting Ezekiel 38 and 39, then it goes to Daniel 11. It says, the prince of the congregation and all Israel, which was written in the book of Ezekiel the prophet, I will strike your bow from your left hand, and will make your arrows drop from your right hand. On the mountains of Israel you shall fall.
So we're talking about the arrows flying through the air type thing. That kind of does, we're in Jeremiah 39. I don't know if you've got that verse.
Yes,
you're going to talk about it, but it talks about the bow, breaking the bow in that area as well, exactly where you're talking about in, I'll have to remember here, let me look here, in Elam, which is territorially the exact same spot. So
Same place.
Same place.
All three names for the same place.
Interesting.
And it goes on in the War Scrolls. It says, the king of the Kittim, the prince of the congregation, will pursue them as far as the great sea, and they shall flee from before Israel. In that time he shall stand against them, and they shall be stirred against them. The same word, it talks about stirring them up in Enoch. The language is so similar in all of these. And they shall return to the dry land in that time, and they shall bring him, the king of Kittim, before the prince of the congregation. The branch of David will kill him by strokes and by wounds, and a priest of renown will command the slain of the Kittim. Wow. Fascinating.
Fascinating.
It is just absolutely fascinating. And you can read that entire chapter in the book of Enoch, and it talks about how that they go all the way to the sea and right up to the Temple Mount. Then something happens and they're driven out. And we see the same scenario in the War Scrolls. We see it in 2nd Esdras. And I'll give you the chapter. It's Enoch chapter 56. Now, is this all a coincidence? Well, I what I believe about coincidences. And in the 49th chapter of the book of Jeremiah, which John referenced, and this is really profound. And in all of these passages, the sequence is on the very final battle. Yeah, it's going to be Messiah come back and waste this guy. And it puts it at the very end of time in the final war, like in the War Scroll of Qumran, of the war between the sons of light and the sons of darkness.
Yeah.
Now, Jeremiah 49. Now, we don't want to miss this. And the young lady from the Indian News Network actually showed a picture of this. The nuclear facility, one of their major ones, that is just almost on top of the ancient palace of Shushan, which we read about in the book of Esther. And it says here in Jeremiah 49, beginning in verse 36, and upon Elam will I bring the four winds from the four quarters of heaven. Now, remember how Revelation 7 starts out. Four angels holding back the four winds of heaven until the sealed of God have the seal put on their forehead. We're talking about the removal of the restrainer. In Enoch chapter 56, it talks about the release of the fallen angels. And when they're released, they're going to stir up Iran. You know, we've just got it all here. So it's going to be the four winds that will from heaven, and will scatter them toward all those winds, and there shall be no nation whither the outcast of Elam shall come. They're going to get smoked. For I will cause Elam to be dismayed before their enemies, and before them that seek their life, and I will bring evil upon them, even my fierce anger, saith the Lord, and I will send the sword after them till I have consumed them. And there you go. And this is, when Israel, if Israel would, and they will at one point in time, declare war on Iran, this would be one of their top 3 targets right here, I guarantee you. And it's right there. It's kind of an in-your-face type thing. Another thing, in the book, The Method and Message of Jewish Apocalyptic by Mr. Russell, he gave another confirming passage. And this was from something that we keep talking about. It keeps coming up from another one of these apocalyptic books, Second Baruch. It talks about the black waters. And we see in the book of Baruch, it divides the Great Tribulation into 12 parts. If you're preterist, just skip it and forget about it. If it goes on and it talks about these 12 waters, black and white, they alternate. And in the final black water, this is what it says about it. And it talks about this final battle and this conflagration. It says in chapter 70, hear therefore the interpretation of the last black waters. In verse 7, and some of them shall be destroyed by their own. And that's what I'm looking for, double cross. Then the Most High peoples, whom he has prepared before, and they shall come and make war with the leaders that shall then be left. And it shall come to pass that whoever gets safe out of the war shall die in the earthquake, and whoever gets safe out of the earthquake shall be burned by the fire, and whoever gets safe out of the fire shall be destroyed by the famine. And it shall come to pass that whoever of the victors and the vanquished gets safe out of and escapes all these things aforesaid will be delivered into the hands of my servant the Messiah, for all the earth shall devour its inhabitants. And Second Baruch, just like the War Scrolls, it sees the Messiah doing the final smackdown on this group of individuals. Now, when we put it to the primary Bible text is in the book of Daniel. And let's turn and let's read in the book of Daniel. And there are things here, there is so much cognitive dissonance among people when they read Scripture. When they read the Word of God, they can't really hear what the Bible's saying. They're going to hear what their favorite preacher said about it. And there's some things here in Daniel 11 that are just right in our face. Now, and as I said, Daniel 11 is the chapter. It talks about the king of the north, king of the south, which is exactly this final alliance. And this is exactly the way this final confrontation, the two sides are being identified as the global north and the global south. Well, let's read a little text here in Daniel chapter 11. And let's start here in verse 37. Let's just read verse 37, a little text here. This is concerning, well, in verse 36, and the king shall do according to his will. That's why I'm very clever. I called him the willful king, because he does according to his will.